listen.
Never in my life associated the word boring with baseball.
We know what's up.
Me? Yeah. Famous? Yeah.
And I'm like giddy over there smiling like, we're about to win this shit.
Did everyone give you crap? Give me a good host story.
I'm not picking it up.
We both love the game.
We talk about it every day.
Get on baseball.
Having some popcorn, you're fooling around your phone.
I'd have to wait in line for 3 hours.
Hang on, because it's about to be a wild ride.
There is honestly no human being I'd rather be talking to on the planet right now than Brandon Gomes. Why do you laugh?
Because it's a little excessive, but I appreciate that.
Oh, it's true. I mean, it's like I only tell truth.
Yep.
Hey, listen, I appreciate you. I appreciate you coming on. But first off, because I'm on the other side of the country, and I want to make sure that everybody. I want to make sure your family's okay, you're okay, that everyone in the Dodgers organization, everyone in your world, and everybody out there, like from the fires, because again, you being from the other side of the country, sometimes we get disconnected. Yep. But I know how serious it was and continues to be. So how is everything out there?
Yeah, we were incredibly fortunate. Didn't have any, weren't affected by it. We had to evacuate for a few days and lost power, but nothing serious. Obviously, what's been going on in Palisades and Arcadia is devastating. We have had some people in the organization be affected. So yeah, it's something that the city is, pulled together and supported each other, but it's going to take a while to recover. And there's unfortunately a lot of devastation, but something that people have really bonded over and stepped up and showed support. So hopefully at this point we're, on the road to recovery, and it's going to take a while, but, going to keep moving forward. And the organization especially will be there for the city when they need it most.
Well, offline, if you let me know anything we can do in our small part at all. I mean, I've kind of been racking my brain, and I know that it might be the smallest of parts, but a little bit helps. So
I appreciate that.
Yeah. So, and another behind the scenes, which you did not know. So obviously, I value every time you come on, and I texted you a while ago, and I was sort of texting, sort of trying to set up the week, trying to set up the next couple of weeks, and I knew that at some point this offseason I would really love to talk to you, and I texted, I'm like, oh my God, what am I doing? What am I doing? Like, it was right in the heart of all that was going on. And I felt, I'm not even gonna lie to you, Brandon, I legitimately lost sleep over that text.
Oh man.
Yeah. Because I was like, I did not read the room when it came to what you might be going through, what people might be going through, everything else, all for the sake of organizing a podcast. So I apologize.
All good, man.
So
all
sorry.
good.
Sorry.
Don't worry about it at all.
Well, listen, you're here, and it's all good. So the biggest question everyone wants to know is that a member of your World Series winning team got a baseballs and boring tattoo. Correct. You see this? You saw that?
I have not seen it yet.
What?
I have not. I'm not a massive social media guy, so I haven't seen this yet.
Well, okay. Well, this is going to be delicious and delightful to send that to you. I already have multiple members from another organization say that if they win the World Series, they will get a baseballs and boring tattoo. So, as a friend of the program, if you want, Mr. Cartoons is in the So, Brandon, I flew out to Los Angeles for 19 hours.
Okay.
Get this tattoo with Joe Kelly. Wow. Side by side from the world famous Mr. Cartoons, who only does celebrities, and me. And so I flew out there, and again, you from the East Coast, that's not an easy flight to go.
No, that's not.
No, but I did it.
That's real dedication.
No, it's real dedication. And that's how much, and we had set this agreement back. I think it was the first game in the World Series in Dodger Stadium where Joe said, yeah, okay, if we win the World Series, I'll get a tattoo with you. And we did. So I did that. I committed to doing that.
Impressive.
It's right here on my bicep, the most painful part. And so even if you want to say maybe. Maybe. Do you have any tattoos?
I do not. No tattoos. So
Well,
it makes it a little harder.
Well, I'm not going to say that.
But I do like winning the World Series.
Excuse me?
I do like winning the World Series. So it's, it's at least it's an interesting proposition.
Okay. Well, it's the manager of the Boston Red Sox also has no tattoos, and he has agreed to get one. Okay. So we should not just disregard it just because you have no tattoos.
It may be more like when I tell my kids, like, we'll see or maybe, but it's non-zero. It's non-zero.
It's if nothing else, you along with a ring and a trophy and all those memories, it's just a little something to say. Yeah. Look at what we did. Yeah. Look at what we did. How did it hit, man? Like, I haven't talked to you since. Obviously, we're gonna get to the off season, but how did it hit?
Yeah, I mean, there's so much build up. The 2020 championship was incredible, and the celebration got muted, and then there was no parade. So it was cool, and it was the off season. Going in, you're fine with spring training taking a little bit longer to get there. But this one, with the celebration, all of the challenges along the way, the parade, and the outpouring of support, and coming back to a packed house at Dodger Stadium after the parade, I was like, man, you have really high expectations of what that's going to be, and like it surpassed that. It was like the energy was palpable. And it just felt like years and years of, fans waiting for that moment again. So it was incredible. It was special. I had my family on the float with me, so get to really. It wasn't
the same float as Daniel Hudson's float, was it?
No. That
one. Why I'm asking that, right?
Yes, I do.
Daniel Hudson's wife got hit in the head with a beer can. But anyway. But that's what everybody said. Guys who have been through that before, even though it was sort of a shorter parade, it was so unbelievably intense.
Yeah.
So that was great.
Yeah, it was wild. And going back to Dodger Stadium and having that whole, that next step to the parade was pretty amazing.
Did you go to Mookie's house after the podcast party? No?
I did not. But it sounded like it was a pretty good time.
Yeah, well, how can it not be? One of the things about winning the World Series, this is, it's a weird question, and I know that the obvious answer is, but when we're going through the offseason, when it comes to teams, winning the World Series, sometimes it just feels like people don't value it enough. I know that's a stupid statement, but we play so much of sustainability and playing the long game and all of that. We hear that so much from organizations, and all of that is important. But winning the World Series in so many ways, maybe is undervalued. I don't know. Like, not only in terms of the feeling of it and what it does to the community, but business-wise. I'm kind of anxious to get your perspective of that.
Yeah, I mean, I think, look, it's what we do this for, right? It's the whole point of playing a season is to get a chance to get to the playoffs to win a World Series. So, at least from our perspective, every year the goal is winning the World Series. Now, to your point, like sustainability and all those things are very important, and they've been, core principles of ours. There's a balance. We talk about this all the time when it comes to trades or moves or signings. If you said, hey, if you trade for this guy, if you sign this guy, you will win the World Series. Done.
No, but not to interrupt you, but I honestly believe that some organizations don't feel that way.
I don't know about that. The problem is that we don't live in a sport, and really no sports are that way, that you say, hey, if you did this, it's 100% you would win it. Does it increase the chances? For sure. But there is no move that says you will 100% win the World Series that year. So you have to do a bunch of moves that you think that continue to help your chances to win. So with that being said, we do all this work to win the World Series. And if at any point somebody said, hey, you do this, you make this trade, you sign this guy, you will win the World Series next year, like, great, we are definitely in. So I think from that perspective, it's hard to balance those things. But we, and I think most organizations are like, the World Series is what we're doing this for. And having seen that parade, you're like, man, let's go do that again, and as many times as we possibly can. And that's a lot of what our ownership this offseason and last offseason, like an incredible amount of support. Like, hey, go do it. Let's go put the best team out there. Our fans come out, they support us, they love this team. Let's give back. And this is like this circular piece of, they deserve it. They come out and support us at a higher clip than anyone. Let's pour back into the team. And it's this, this circular nature of, like, that's our goal, is to win a World Series and make our fans happy.
Yeah, and that's the answer I like, and I think everybody should appreciate. I still stand by that. Some people maybe see that clearer than others. I guess that's what I'll say. But the along those lines, obviously, you've allocated a lot of resources to winning another World Series this offseason. And that's another thing that I'm going to applaud you for. Not that you needed applause from me, but anyway, I'll do it. And because I think sometimes you win a World Series and, like, okay, it's good. We'll run it back. It'll work. But obviously, all you have to do is go look at the transaction log and know that you guys didn't do that, which is a great thing. And how you did it was a great way of doing it. Does it surprise you that even, like, the sliver of conversation where they say, oh, my goodness, what the Dodgers are doing are bad for baseball? I was going to ask that question. So
of course, yeah. And look, I think from our perspective, we are tasked with worrying about us, right, and our fans. So if there are 29 other fan bases or whatever that are upset with us, pretty sure that means that our fan base is very happy, which means we are doing a decent job of what we're trying to do, right? So our goal is to put ourselves in the best possible position to win the World Series each and every year. We won it last year. Last year has nothing to do with this year. It guarantees nothing for 2025. What has been great, like I said, is our ownership group is like, go put out an even better team. Like, okay, let's do that. And now let's focus on winning in 2025. The team that we had going into 2024 is not the team we finished with in October. And everything we're doing now is with the goal of, we don't want to have to go trade really good prospects at the deadline. We will do it when it's necessary, but the goal is to not have to buy in July because prices are 2 and 3x what they normally are. So if we set up a really talented team that also has depth, the goal is, like, in July, like, your team is good enough to win the World Series, and you don't need to make additions. If you have to, you do, and if you evaluate and see how you can improve, but that is not the goal. So a lot of these moves are with the mindset of, come July, like, we don't have to go out to market.
Can I use that? I'm gonna wear that line out now. There's a couple. The fact, like, that you set up so you don't have to rely on a market that, to your words, are 2 or 3 times X. Because I don't think that maybe people also view it that way enough. And I'm gonna wear that one out. I worry about the player that you're getting instead of the players you're giving up more. I wear out that line. I wear out the Chris Young story from a couple of years ago where they sat in a room and said, hey, do you think we can win a World Series? If so, these prospects are gone. There are certain things to me that make so much sense that have to be surfaced. And what you just said, PM, copyright. So I'm just telling you that I just think it's really, really smart. So yeah. So here's a wonky question about your job. When you, obviously, I think it's, over 450 million, 8 players, whatever it is, this offseason. When does that plan, not that they say you're going to get everybody that you want, but when does the plan of executing what you've done sort of start? I remember talking to you at the end of the World Series and said, listen, I'm just worried about winning the World Series. Like, we'll worry about the GM meetings when we land in San Antonio.
Yep.
But when does this plan of all these players sort of start going?
Yeah, I mean, I think, probably you understand who's going to be a free agent at the end of each season. You kind of have a sense of that going into that year. The year plays out, and then we, obviously we have an incredibly short time to prepare, which is the goal every year, and it's a total blitz. And you've done at least enough due diligence on the front end of like, okay, these are the guys that are going to be available, kind of have a sense of what we think we'll be going after. And then, we win the World Series, it's parade, it's Halloween, it's parade, it's this, that. And then like Sunday night, you basically have like a day or two to hang. And then Sunday night, we're off to the GM meeting. So we use that time as like, okay, like let's set up what we're looking to accomplish with more detail and how we're going to, start to divide and conquer and say, hey, we're going to reach out to this guy. Let's make sure here's our priorities. And then here's like the have to do's, and then here's the nice to haves. And then here's what's, the total package. And you start going through that. And fortunately enough, we have been very successful in getting guys to say yes. That's not always the case. The work is always the same. It's just you don't always get the player that you're trying to get at the end of it. So it's been an interesting offseason. And last offseason was actually fairly similar in that, like, all of the work that goes into the preparation, the selling the organization, and then the conversations back and forth with agents or teams, they just actually bear fruit this offseason rather than, hey, something just fell apart and player X went elsewhere.
Well, beyond the money, do you get going through that process? Do you sense that you get the feedback more and more and more from players of, yeah, thank you for a lot of money, thank you for the years or whatever it is, but we see what you do behind the scenes. We see what you do in making players better. And I know that that's been a narrative with you guys for a while, but it feels like at this point, it really, really, really has had an enormous impact on getting some of these guys.
Yeah, and I think, it's always something that we talk about, we take pride in, and obviously, like, the action is way more useful than just saying these things. But what's most powerful is when players are saying the same thing, right? If players talk to players, it's such a small community. You're always one person away from knowing pretty much everybody in the big leagues. So they talk, and if they feel like they've been treated properly, and we do take care of the families the way we do, and we do travel, best in class, all of these things, they talk. So then, it may not always be top dollar, or if it is and all else is equal, hey, I'd prefer to go to the team that is going to take care of my family, that we know is going to, be competing for a championship year in, year out. And there's organizations across, the big leagues that do that, but we take pride in those things, and players talk, and, having come off a World Series and then showing that we're continuing to try to even improve that team, I think is powerful. And then those things on the outside that are off the field do make a difference in our opinion. And I do think, players are valuing that as well.
Oh, I think so too. I mean, I hear it all the time, but one of the, obviously an example of this is the Sasaki stuff. And the Sasaki pursuit it was a unique dynamic. I'm interested to hear from you, Brandon, of how unique it was. What was unique about it that maybe you didn't even expect? I know one thing is we were getting these Sasquatch videos of him throwing in Rogers Center or Echo Park. Like, well, unless he's throwing off a mound of dirt at Dodger Stadium, he's throwing somewhere else. So what was? Yeah,
it was a fascinating process in that every team, different free agents, there's times where it's like, hey, this may not make sense for this team. These are the teams we're kind of thinking are going to be in. Like, obviously, every team could use Roki Sasaki. And so that right there makes it unique. Then you add into it, like, okay, there's just not that much information about this guy. And you're hearing these different stories of like what will be important, what's not. So what we're trying to do is sell our organization as what makes the most sense. And then during the meetings, very thoughtful and very attentive, but not a ton of like back and forth. There's not a lot of questions being asked. So you kind of leave the meeting like, okay, I think we did well, but I'm not really sure.
It's different than Otani, though. I mean, not to compare the obviously different situations, but
yeah, it was different. So the Shohei one, the initial one, I was not here for. Obviously the free agent one was different, where I think Shohei, it's pretty clear kind of what he was looking for, and there was probably like a smaller amount of teams that made sense, where Roki, everybody would be in. So I think those meetings, we would walk away thinking like, okay, I think that went well, but I don't have a ton of confidence. And that's kind of the feedback we've gotten from across the board. So it was really about like selling what we felt like was the most important things of our organization, and hoping that those lined up.
So when did it feel like that you might, obviously he narrows down the teams, but when does it feel like you said, okay, we put ourselves in a pretty good position here?
I mean, yeah, once we get told we're narrowed down to the last couple of teams, like, okay, I feel better. But it wasn't until like we get the Shohei text that we're like, okay, there was a lot of it. The similarities with Show were that at no point did we feel great. Like, I think this makes sense, and I think we're in a good position, but you still have that like uneasy feeling in your gut of like, man, this, like, the way this thing could swing, it's like, it's quite volatile, so we don't really know.
I mean, the Shark Tank guy missed a huge opportunity. I mean, he just did. Like, how can you not get off a plane to simulate that all over again? It would have been amazing. But that was the thing. I remember talking to you last year about that. Like, you guys were charting that flight the same way. Like, people think that you guys know, like, all this, everything that's going on, even with the Sasaki. It sounds like you don't, like, you all the way up until the end.
Yeah, I mean, that was the thing. Like, we were riding the roller coaster of the flight to Toronto with Shohei, and the same thing. Like, coming up through this, like, I just don't know. Like, I think we're in a good position, but I am like far from confident, because, like I said, there was no way to walk away from those meetings and be like, yeah, we crushed it. Like, hey, I think we did well, but we don't know what happened in those other meetings either.
Oh, I want to know. But last question about Sasaki, sort of looking forward now. It's a unique thing, right? I mean, that, one of the things that he had been reported that he really wanted to know from teams, and maybe you can confirm this about the project about, hey, why did my fastball velocity dip, right?
Yep.
So he's going into spring training with you guys now. With any player from Japan, it's a unique situation. So how are you guys approaching, now that we're a few weeks away, approaching his spring training, what you're going to do, what might be unique about how you're approaching it? Any insight you can give with that would be awesome.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is like getting our trainers, our performance staff, our pitching coaches, like actually getting our hands on him out there, poured through hours and hours of video to be prepared for, that question that he asked. But now it's about like getting him in and then, talking to him along the way and making this very clear. We do this with all our players. Like, this is a partnership. So obviously you've been incredibly successful. There are things that you have done that you want to keep doing. Great. Let us know. Here are things that we think could help. Let's all be open and collaborative, because there is no one way to do anything. With when Yamamoto came and he's throwing his javelins and, the way he works out, like, great. Like, let's embrace that. Let's figure out how to help you continue to be successful. And maybe there's some stuff that works for us that we can implement. Maybe there's some stuff that we do that helps you. And, with Roki, it's going to be that partnership. And like one of the things that I think our group does so well is like there's no like dictation of, hey, you're going to do this. Like the player has to buy into what's going on and any adjustments that are going to happen. Otherwise, they just don't stick. Like if you don't believe in what you're doing, you're going to abandon it the minute it doesn't have success, because at some point you're not going to have success doing anything, right? So we have to like come in, understand how he moves, all of these things, what he's trying to do, just get a better understanding of it all. And he's obviously been incredibly successful up to this point. So it's like, okay, let's go through your routine, and then we have to start tailoring it and figuring it out. Okay, here's the major league season. And I know Roki has said this and been adamant. He's like, I want to go earn a spot in that rotation. Now, what he's done in the NPB probably does that, and just the electric stuff and how he goes about his business. But he is very much of the mindset, like, I'm going to come in and earn a spot. I don't want anything given to me. So very cool.
I may have missed this. What the 6-man rotation talk? Do you guys?
Yeah, I mean, I think for him, it's going to be we are going to get him ample rest, and it's going to be something that we continue to evaluate along the way. Obviously, when Shohei is back, it's just easier for us to do that and get extra rest when needed. But there could be times where he doesn't need it or needs more, or just like it is with all of our guys. So we have the flexibility on the front end with our depth and the number of guys that we have. Once Shohei comes back and joins the rotation, then it's far easier to work that in. And I think it was one of the selling points that we used. Like, we are just uniquely positioned to help you with your development in this way, where, we did it last year where we were plugging guys in and making sure Yamamoto was getting the appropriate amount of rest early on. And we can do it. It's challenging, but you can definitely do it. So it's prioritizing how to make sure guys ease their way into it and making sure you're setting them up for success.
Well, that's the thing. I think that when 6-man rotations come up, people are like, well, here it is. Here are your 6 pitchers, and no matter what the schedule looks like, this is what it's going to happen. And it's not that way, especially you guys know better than anyone. It's about getting to the finish line. Like, right? Yeah. I mean, that's what we're talking about.
Exactly. And there's also pitchers like Snell or Glass at times, like, hey, I don't want to go on extra. Like, I want to go on regular. This is going to help me prepare for the postseason. We did it with Flaherty down the stretch last year. Like, hey, man, if I'm going to come back and pitch on regular, like, I need to do it. I haven't done it in a long time. Like, we agree. Okay, let's figure out the appropriate time to bring you back in on 4 days rest, because that can happen, right? And to your point, you don't just like pencil in the rotation and those guys stick the whole year. Like, nobody knows that better than we do. Yeah. So it's being flexible, understanding guys may be on a roll and feeling great. Okay, let's shorten it up. Guys may need extra rest to work on things, or they're a little extra sore, whatever. We can do that. So it's making sure that communication is going on and not being so rigid and like, nope, this is, hey, you have like, day off, 2 games, day off, got to run a 6-man. Everybody's going to have 9 days off. Like, that may not happen, right?
Yeah.
So you have to understand that it ebbs and flows in that way.
All right, I've been very generous with you, Tom. I'm going to rattle off through some names. Some names you're going to just basically say I can't talk about.
Okay.
All right.
Great.
I'll start with the one that you can talk about, Michael Kopech.
Yeah.
And I saw that, there was a report that he might not be ready for opening day, which is a surprise. We had him on the podcast, and I really like Michael a lot. Like, I like him. I've talked to him about this, very honest conversations about how he's evolved as a human being, obviously how he's evolved as a player, and just like, also, I think he's a really, really good pitcher. But what is the what's what when it comes to his physical ability?
Yeah, I'm not really sure like where all that. Like, Kopi's throwing and going through his off-season throwing program, and he's like everybody else. As guys come in, we're going to see where they're at and making sure they're progressing well. But yeah, I'm not sure where he's definitely missing a month here. Like, we're getting reports, and Kopi's throwing and feeling pretty good. So we'll continue to monitor him like we do all of our guys, especially our relievers that we had to lean on heavily down the stretch. And we're going to make sure that they're feeling good and we're not putting them in harm's way, because once again, like, the goal is to win in 2025. But yeah, Kopech's throwing and progressing.
Was he surprised? Was he saying like,
about the report?
Yeah, he was like, where's this coming from?
Certainly seems like it. So I'm not really sure.
Yeah.
But to your point, like, amazing dude, unbelievable competitor, and like one of the best intro songs in the game.
Yeah. And excellent. I told him also, getting that last out after giving up I think the home run to Verdugo, is that right?
Yeah.
And I think Max Muncy had come into the mound and settled him down because he's trying to throw 150 miles an hour for reasons which whatever. And so by just to like that, I said you should take stock in that moment of closing out that game. I mean, it's not easy to do. So
no question.
Clayton Kershaw, what's going on?
Yeah, I mean, obviously we've continued to talk with Kersh, and the hope and expectation is that he's back with us this year. So seems like that's in a good spot.
Okay, this one you're definitely probably not going to answer. Kirby Yates.
Definitely cannot talk about Kirby Yates. I love the dude, former teammate, one of my favorite people I've ever been.
You were a team. Oh, you were a team. I didn't know that. Oh, really?
Back with Tampa. Yeah, we were teammates.
Okay. So. All right. This one is 50-50. Joe Kelly.
Joe Kelly, same thing. I mean, great dude. Apparently has a baseball isn't boring tattoo.
Oh, so good. Yeah. It's so good. It's so. Right when we finish, I'm going to send you this, because it was done by the Michelangelo of tattoo artists, Mr. Cartoon.
I need your bicep tattoo as well.
Yeah, well, I can't.
I know. Yeah. I'm just assuming that it looks a little different on Joe than you.
No, I mean, this is what I say. Our biceps are the same size. It's just one has muscle in them. All right. The last thing is, and again, I really appreciate it, is, I just this morning, I saw Mookie over in Japan, right? Is that right? Yeah. And, I love talking to Mookie. Usually he wants to talk about anything but baseball, like podcasting or whatever it is.
Yeah.
But the evolution of Mookie, you've seen it from the Dodgers. I've seen it, somewhat from afar, somewhat close up. But the evolution of Mookie to be comfortable in what he is right now, which isn't always easy, right?
Yep.
And so I'm anxious to get your take of what you've seen from the evolution of Mookie since you've got to know him.
Yeah, I think obviously the player has continued to be more than incredible. His selflessness of changing positions and that superstar caliber player is not okay with just changing things up and going to challenge himself and learn how to play shortstop on the fly. Watching him grow into a leadership role and being more comfortable taking that on with us, because obviously when he came over, we've had guys that have been here a long time, and I think he's coming into that. And then watching him in over the course of the year, and then in our meeting with Roki and the other players, and watching him really dominate that meeting and just have his personality come out and give a riveting speech, and all of these things was incredibly impressive. And I commend him on that, because it's not easy as a superstar to go and continue on that journey. And I think he's really embraced that. And maybe it started with doing the podcast, but watching his personality come out and help, he's continued to help the organization in so many ways with, even with that meeting alone was really impressive. So it's been cool to kind of see him. It's weird to see, a superstar to come out of their shell, but I think he's starting to just find himself in a way that is even more impressive of a person, because you always see it behind the scenes, what a good dude he is. And him being able to express that around other people or when we have meetings like this is awesome to see.
But I'm telling you, that it doesn't surprise me, but I'm happy to hear you say that in that meeting with Roki, he was this guy who was I would have met he like I don't know if he led the meeting, if he was certainly more vocal than the other players, whatever it was. But I know that, let's say 6 years ago, that would have been very difficult for him. I know his intentions were good. I always remember Joe talking about the first meeting he had with the Dodgers where he gets up in the clubhouse. He's like, I got to be a leader. And it was kind of awkward, right? But now in that room with Roki, I would love to be there because I would love to hear the Mookie on the stool, like the Rudy, like this. Yeah. Hey, Roki, this is why you should be a Dodger, right?
It was awesome. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, it was really impressive.
That's awesome. Well, all right. Well, you've been very impressive. Thank you for all your time.
Thank you, Rob.
I hope that I didn't take up too much of it, and we will. I'll sift my way through the massive amounts of media that's going to be out in spring training with you guys because it will be. But I hope that you get some rest. I hope that you get some time with your family before spring training, and good job with everything. Thanks so much, man.
Thank you very much. Good catching up as always.